Hey everyone, give people a few minutes to come in. There is a lot to cover. This is probably one of the most recently informative shows from Candace. Hey everyone, One Sober Buckeye, Vivian, Jackie, Vicky, Joe Sheet. I think this one was very interesting. And I think the Dan Flood stuff may have kind of been known, like not those specific things, but just the idea that he has some kind of association more than just being a security guy. Because when I spoke about him before, I believe he's Secret Service or was Secret Service, and his resume now says he's Secret Service again. So clearly he has some connections. Salute. Yeah, hit that like on the way in. That's the only way YouTube pushes this out. All right, let's see. Dan Flood's Harpo's boss. Maybe. The one thing I do know about them is they go way back. Let's see. Do I have alopecia? Yes. Alopecia universalis. Mr. Turpin, how's it going? Jordan says, guys, I love Candace, okay? Hey, Gregory. Yeah, if you guys can put where you're watching from, that'd be great. I'm always interested to see the, especially the ones that are outside the country. Yeah, so I know that my bot, Nightbot can be rough sometimes. So I'm constantly trying to adjust it, but I see it dings people mostly for pasting like excessive links, and then also sometimes for bad language. Tucson, Arizona, Indiana, California, Ireland. Someone says Trump is the Antichrist. All right. Maine, Missouri, Wisconsin. A little bit from all over. I would never let the FBI know where I'm from. Sweden. Welcome from Sweden. Slovenia. Wow. All right. So what I'll do is, obviously a lot of people come to the recaps mostly because they didn't have time to watch the original or they missed it, but make sure you go watch the full episode if you get a chance. And the way she delivers it, and the way she like makes her jokes and that kind of stuff can be entertaining for a lot of people. But let's go ahead and switch over to my notes here. And this is going to be specifically on today's, which was Let the Floodgates Open. Okay. And for some of you, if you're on mobile, this is the first time that I've done vertical as well. And I know that the layouts can be kind of tricky. Hopefully you guys can see everything. I know that StreamYard's still working on that. All right. Saskatoon. Hey, Trig. All right. So let's go into the notes. Now, this is, well, I did talk about Dan Flood. There's a lot of other information in here, but we'll start with this first. So she said some guy's been emailing her, and he said that he knew Charlie would be assassinated. Okay. That's not really news, I guess, technically, because Charlie said he would die young. And other people also thought that since he was such an important figure, that was a possibility. But he also said he knew who killed JFK. He said the JFK family were involved in the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Okay. So he's linking Charlie Kirk and JFK as far as who might be responsible. And he's saying that they're basically from Texas, right? So that's pretty important to the rest of this story is Texas. He said, allegedly, all bot cops are a part of the Cattleman's Ball or the Cattleman's Baron Ball. It's a money laundering operation from Israel. Okay. That's what this person alleges. And this person also says he was part of it. So like she said, he's kind of implying himself in crime. Single night fundraiser for the American Cancer Society, founded 50 years ago in multiple states. So basically, what they do, at least what it seems like they do, is they didn't say anything about the Bushes, but you know, I'm sure a lot of the elites are involved in that. But this fundraiser would raise an insane amount of money, and then they would take that and do who knows what with it, right? And this would be in multiple different states. She also mentioned Nebraska specifically. Also used to have one called Cattleman's Ball, and they made their own called Cattleman's Ball to, I guess, to benefit the Buffett Cancer Center. So it's a similar type of thing. But the long story short is they're raising a lot of money for possibly nefarious things. Seems to be the allegation. And then she said, or the guy says, sorry, he says that she didn't know who Dan Flood's father is, talking about Candace and obviously the rest of us. Well, his dad is Robert Eugene Flood. I know I have a typo there, and I have to fix it because I have OCD. And he did 33 years on the police force in Texas and Illinois. Okay. He was an FBI graduate, master police officer, ex-Marine staff sergeant. He was in surveillance, target acquisition, weapons. She named off like 10 things. So this guy is very high level, right? Very high level. And he worked in Franklin Park, Illinois for a decade, which just happens to be in the same area, I believe, as Charlie Kirk, she was saying. So basically same neighborhood, right? And he became a lieutenant colonel in the Army Reserves, retired, and he became captain of police. He joined FBI AA, which is Agent Association. And what I got from this is that it's a charity founded in 1981 for former and current feds to help FBI special agents come together and figure out how to like help their own or like, you know, build themselves up more. That's what I took from it. And she said it includes up to like 14,000 previous and current FBI agents. And then she asked the question, could a billionaire cut a check and have FBI agents for hire? So if you think about it, you have all these agents that are getting together for these like cancer balls and things, right? And they're raising, you know, tens of millions of dollars. So she's saying, could it be possible that if someone came in with enough money, could they basically hire out these FBI agents for possibly nefarious purposes? And she says, Bill Montgomery probably knew Dan Flood's father. So Montgomery was also military. She says that Charlie was monitored from childhood, and Montgomery hired Schaefer Security to protect Charlie and basically be with him at all times. So he was never allowed to have freedom. He was always watched, always monitored, always secure. That's strange. That's not normal, okay? Especially from a younger age. And then if you don't know who Montgomery is, he is the guy that initially got Charlie set up and basically encouraged him to get out of school and start this path like with TPUSA and the speaking and everything. And then Schaefer, he's the security guy that was running all the security for Charlie Kirk and some TPUSA staff before Dan Flood and Brian Harple took it over with this integrity security group. Okay. And Greg Schaefer, also from Texas and also FBI. And he also has some Budapest connections. Okay. So we're seeing a pattern. FBI, Texas, people's fathers knew each other. These people are possibly in Charlie's neighborhood where he grew up, right? And I don't know what the location is or how to spell it, but I got like New Braunfels is what I kept hearing, New Braunfels, Texas. If you know what town Candace was talking about, can you put that in the chat, please? Because I could not hear it correctly a couple different times when she said it. Yeah, make sure you hit that like. But it says that Erica kept going there by plane, right? So Erica kept going to this location, New Braunfels, Texas, okay? I'm probably spelled that completely wrong, but the point is she went there a lot, okay? And then Carl Buckman and his wife live there. Apparently they're large donors. And Dan Flood also lives in the same place, New Braunfels or whatever it's called, Texas. So the place that Erica goes a lot, Dan Flood lives there. There's some big donors that live there, okay? And Dan Flood is originally from Allen, Texas. And she said she knows this because his friend from school said that Dan Flood protected a billionaire from the Cattleman's Baron Ball. And this was, I believe, on a social media post. So that means that Dan Flood has been doing the protection for a very long time. And this implicates him for this Cattleman's Baron Ball where there's all this money that goes out for possibly nefarious issues for like FBI and that kind of stuff. He's protecting billionaires there. So seems to be very well connected, right? More so than just, hey, I'm a security guy and I protect Charlie Kirk. And like I said, I believe he's also security for Homeland Security. He's a Secret Service. And then she said most of Charlie's security was from Texas, which is interesting. Brian and his father, Bobby Harpole, also have Texas ties. If you remember, Brian Harpole did 14 years as a sheriff or some similar type of position. He and his father were both police. His dad worked for a funeral home now, which she just noted as interesting. So that might come in handy. But if he's in Texas and it happened in Utah, maybe there's nothing there. And then military ties go back decades. Then she questions if feds would actually investigate their own, which is a great question. If Brian Harpole and Dan Flood have some kind of federal connection, some kind of intelligence background and connection to these people, would the U.S. government, would anyone in the current government actually investigate them? It's a very good question. And I would say maybe not, right? I mean, it implicates your own people, and that looks really bad publicly. You don't want to have that, okay? New Braunfels, I'm seeing people type this in here. Let's see. New Braunfels, Texas. Okay, thank you. I thought I heard something similar, but I could not place it. Okay, yeah. New Braunfels, Texas. Okay, cool. All right. And can you see, I don't know if you can even read that text, but yeah, I'll just keep it large. And then she says she feels like someone at TPUSA is setting Erica Kirk up. Now, she's partially joking, but she implied that Elizabeth McCoy, which I believe is Mikey McCoy's wife, as wanting to slide into the CEO spot, which is interesting because up to this point, everyone's implied the gentleman, right? Andrew Colvett, Mikey McCoy, Rob McCoy, Frank Turek. But now she's saying, like I said, partially jokingly, but maybe not, Elizabeth McCoy seems like she wants the throne. And that's very interesting. Someone said they can barely see me. Yeah, if you're on mobile, like I said, on mobile, the way that StreamYard works, it is tricky. Okay, so what I might do is just switch to Streamlabs, where I can adjust the layout and stuff myself. So maybe I'll try that for the next one. But the way it's set up now is about the best it can be on mobile. So there's also a horizontal version. So if you want to back out of the portrait, you can go to the landscape as well. All right, let's see. Okay. And then, of course, the wolves in finance. A lot of people talked about it. I've also talked about it today, but I got a little bit more in depth. Some people basically watched this video and reacted to it, whereas I went into more of like the legal side of it, what it actually means for defamation, what's required, right? So she talks about that. She also kind of lines it up with Bridget Macron and the cease and desist orders. I guess in that case, I guess there were several social media personalities or someone that the Macrons basically made shut up. And she says TPUSA is on record going against themselves. And she's talking about the drones. So if you guys haven't seen any of this stuff, the best way to explain it is TPUSA had already contradicted itself with some people saying there weren't drones, and then Frank Turk saying that there were drones, and it was kind of up in the air. And then, Paramount Tactical showed a video basically saying that the higher images that we see that are kind of like the sky view are actually from just a tall building picture. But what happened is when they did this cease and desist order against Zach with Wolves in Finance, what they did is they made sure and confirmed that there were media drones. Okay. There were media drones there. So what that means is that I can't reach it from here, but a media drone, they can be pretty tiny, but they can get up to be, maybe 1.5 to 2 feet. And, they're pretty quick. They can go like 40 miles per hour. They would definitely work for security, right? You can get other benefits of like thermal and things like that if you want like a bigger one or more expensive one. But the exact same drones that were used for media could 100% have been used for security, but they're still saying that security didn't get the green light, but media did. Very interesting. But they basically proved that there were drones allowed, right? And then TPUSA lawyer, yep, talked about that. And then, Candace just kind of says, like, they're lying about everything. And she says she thinks it's a cover up and it has been for a while, right? Nothing really new there, nothing major. Let's see. How's my channel streaming twice? Twice live, one in tiny video, and this one. This is because I'm trying StreamYard vertical and horizontal. So I'm streaming both ways. And I'm just trying to get a feel. Some people prefer it on, the mobile portrait version, and some watch it on their TV or on a computer, and they like the horizontal version. So I'm just trying it out. Oh, someone dropped something up there. All right. And then, of course, you have to, with these people, it seems, you have to bring up trafficking. Let me make sure I'm sharing. And I'm not going to say the word because I don't want to get flagged by YouTube. But they bring up trafficking. And they basically said that Erica lived in China and was working in China with Chinese human trafficking victims, right? And we've also heard about Romania. But this is interesting because Erica said she phased into that working with the Marine Corps and the military, and then it kind of spread to Romania. So it sounds like her, I don't remember the name of the exact company that she had, but Romanian Angels, but is another company above that. If you know, put that in the chat. But basically it started in China, and then it spread to Romania using the Marine Corps and the military. And then it sounds like TPUSA said she never lived in China, but then Candace basically, with her receipts, pulled it up, and she said there was an actual video of Charlie saying this. Charlie confirmed that Erica lived in China for 6 months. Okay. So this is another case where they're contradicting themselves. They're losing credibility, right? And then she wants to know, and if you guys know, let her know in her tip line. She wants to know what charity in China Erica Kirk worked with and what they did there. Okay. So that's like an open question. So, if you're on X, if you're investigating this stuff, that's something for you to look out for. And then she talks about Operation Mocking Pastor at Cornerstone Church. And apparently they're having a service about anti-Semitism. And of course, Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson are special featured guests, not in person. And then, of course, they have guest pastor Rob McCoy. And she compares their church to stand-up comedy, basically. And, that's if you've ever watched any of their stuff, there's Cornerstone, and there's also the one that Rob McCoy is in charge of. They seem to be very political. They seem more like political rallies than church, right? But I've been in different churches. They all have different vibes and different ways of doing things, and some work for you, some don't. But I just find it strange. And then with Fox News, apparently Israel is giving an award to Charlie for fighting anti-Semitism. And she was implying that this makes them guilty, right? She said that this type of stuff, like them giving, a day to people when they die, or, special holidays or privileges, or, federal things, that it insinuates that the government did it. And that's another thing, this award being given to Charlie, she's saying that falls into the same category. Now, TPUSA purged employees that they thought were giving information to Candace. So what those employees did is, because they were purged and let go, now they're giving information to Candace. And I think if you saw before, there was a gentleman that said, I believe it was Josh Peterson. He said that they signed NDAs, non-disclosure agreements. So I would think that these employees would not be able to talk about any of this stuff legally, but that's only if they're caught, right? And then, of course, the big announcement is Baron Coleman will be in studio with Candace, it sounds like tomorrow, for a major tip they both received that moves the investigation forward. And Baron also mentioned, he hinted at it, right? Like we knew, right? Everyone knew. He said, I'm going to be on a show that goes earlier than my show, that if you'll see me on it and you'll know what I'm talking about. So obviously the only show I know that goes before his is Candace, right? So I knew yesterday, but she came out today, made it official. And it sounds like, she got entertained by the Joe thing as well. And the fact that he's going to be in studio, I think they both live in Tennessee, is pretty awesome. So, Baron, have a fun time. Watch your back. Bring your security team. I know you have a security team, and make sure you take care of yourself out there. But I think that'll be a great show. And it sounds like they have some tips, which if they're both coming together and they have tips, that would lead me to believe maybe it's airplane related. I'm just guessing, but maybe that's something to do with the plane movement, right? Or maybe what was it? Whisper Mountain or Fairy Mountain or whatever he was talking about, and the people met up there. Maybe they have more information about that. But whatever it is going to be something big. It's big enough that Candace is having Baron on her show. All right, so that's an overview of all the main pieces. Now, I think I do have a poll that's up. Let's see what it says here. So I said, did Candace break new ground tonight? 85% say yes. I would 100% agree. This is probably one of the most action-packed, as far as information goes, shows that I've seen in a while, especially from Candace. And then let me end that poll and add another one here. All right. I want to see what you think they're going to talk about tomorrow. So I'll say, what will Baron and Candace talk about in person? And I'll put airplanes. And then I'll put, I think it was Fairy Mountain. Correct me if I'm wrong. And then brand new info. Okay. And I'm almost curious if this might have something to do with like the exploding mic theory or something similar. But again, we just sit here and wonder. But go ahead and take that poll here really quick. And then let me look at your questions here. Yep, a lot of people saying can't wait to see Candace and Baron Coleman tomorrow. I mean, it should be an interesting dynamic. They both joke around a lot. They're both sharp-witted. I think it should be pretty entertaining. Let's see, Steelers Girl 9636. Thanks for the super. I found the family members of Dan. I'm sending info to Baron. The billionaire owns a ranch here in Texas. I live in San Antonio. My daughter is in New Braunfels. Flood's family affiliates in New Braunfels. Interesting. Yeah, if you have some information beyond what Candace was sharing, I'm sure they would really like that information. And maybe they can expand on that tomorrow. Let's see. Michaela Colombo. Thanks for the super. A lot of people in TPUSA Board of Advisors have ties to Texas and Texas A&M, where Dan Flood went. Texas A&M is a military school. So it sounds like people down there are pretty aware of this stuff. Another one, Micah Colombo. A lot of people at TPUSA Board of Advisors have ties to Texas and Texas A&M, where Dan Flood attended. Let's see. Did you do the same one twice? Well, you did similar. They're not identical. But yep, we got that. It's interesting. And there's a lot of creators in Texas as well. I know, I believe Jesse and Heavy Duty Country, and a lot of those guys are down in that area. So I'm curious if they've heard anything specific about this kind of stuff. And then I'm just looking at, let's see, Bush Jr. is in Dallas. Who's saying pics of Erica at Fort Huachuca? Have you seen pictures? Are you talking? Oh, okay, I see. For tomorrow. Okay. All right, let's do that. In the chat, put a 1 if you think they're going to show pictures of Fort Huachuca with Erica and Cabot Phillips. Put a 2 if you don't think so. That would be interesting. that would be explosive. But again, because I have to be balanced, right? Even if they did have pictures, what does that mean? Does that imply anything? Is there any guilt? Because we know that Erica has already been linked to Fort Huachuca. She did the movie there, and a lot of people have seen her on base. So, and her mother supposedly has contracts there. So it seems like this is something that's just an everyday thing for them. So even if she was seen there, it doesn't actually necessarily mean she did anything wrong. But let me see. I want to try and find this picture here. Erica Kirk movie. Has anyone actually seen that movie yet? It's called November Renaissance. All right, let's look at this really quick. All right. This is the world of 2020, way in the future, right? I'm not sure exactly when this one was filmed. In the world of tomorrow, the mind has become a hard drive linked to the internet, and the once present divide between technology and humanity has become next to non existent. Driving this world forward are the many emerging multinational corporations that have grown in power far beyond the control of world governments. Does that sound familiar? Now, this is kind of scary considering who her parents are or were. I've heard that her father passed, but I believe her mother's still around. And yeah, I mean, just was this movie like one of those things where they kind of like tease you with it ahead of time and then it happens later? You know, like Independence Day, how to have the aliens come to the planet and there's a big war. Are they saying like that's going to happen in the future and they're just kind of like trying to prepare us for it? But it says in this reality, financial institutions vie for dominance through corporate black ops. These clandestine endeavors are carried out by figures known as proxies. And I don't know if a lot of people know about this, but a lot of the war happening in the world right now are proxy wars. Like Ukraine and Russia. Ukraine is a proxy for the US. So basically, the US has been at war with Russia. And the same thing has happened in the Middle East, right? Israel is a proxy for the US in the Middle East. And technically, I guess Thailand would be a proxy for, from the US against China. So, but that's the way wars are being fought now. So the big powers are still there and they're still behind it. And they are funding, the weapons and the men and all that kind of stuff to make it happen. But they're doing it in a way that makes it so they're not directly battling each other. Then it says Gerald McKnight, a former counterterrorism elite, is the best proxy the world has to offer, both hated and desired by all. Now, what character did she play? Let's see, November Renaissance. Renaissance? I know I can't spell this right. November, let's see. Yep. Cyber short film. There's no cast? Where's the cast for this? Interesting. November Renaissance cast. Where is it? Renaissance movie cast. Has to be somewhere. Why would they hide that? So it had a Kickstarter. I see people talking about it. Not gonna let me see it. Interesting. Has anyone actually seen that movie yet? I guess it's a short. It's not like a full feature film. Let's see. TJ Rostas, thanks for the super. Musy Morphos, thanks for the super chat. If they have a time-stamped photo of Erica Kirk from September 8th or 9th, it will prove she lied. She said she was with her mother, then at home preparing dinner for Charlie Kirk. Yeah, I mean, that's one side of it. For which day? Which day did she say she was preparing dinner for Charlie Kirk? Because I think the 8th is the day that she was implicated as possibly being there by Mitch. And then the 9th is the pre-planning meeting that Mitch walked into. So which day was Erica Kirk supposedly making dinner for Charlie Kirk? Freezing Breck, thanks for the super. Maybe she was filming the Squeal. November Renaissance 2, Live or Die Trying. That's funny. The sequel. Gotcha. Kim Brown, thanks for the super. It never got funded, therefore was never released or finished. Okay, that would make sense then. Why I can't find anything on it. So basically, they just have some like little ads and trailers and stuff, but not the full movie. It looked like it was a Kickstarter thing. Okay, that makes more sense. That makes sense. And it's funny that you said I meant to say squeal. I'm not sure if you have autocorrect on your phone, and for some reason sequel keeps turning into squeal, but this is hilarious. You said I don't talk about military. What do you mean? I'm not sure what you're implicating there. Let's see. Okay, the pic Erica sent is the 9th. Yeah, I believe she sent the pic to try and cover for the 9th, but that's not the day that she was implicated as being there. The 8th was. And that's why everyone's saying that her alibi is not covering it. Squeal part 2. Oh, man. There we go. You've redeemed yourself. I meant sequel. All right, so now I want to ask you guys. Let me check your poll here really quick. So the poll was, what will Baron and Candace talk about in person? Now, I wish I would have had the pictures in there, so maybe I'll redo it, but it says, let me share it with all of you. What will Baron and Candace talk about in person tomorrow? Brand new info, 86%. Airplanes, 11%. Fairy Mountain, 3%. So we think it's going to be something brand new that's never been talked about before. So that means they're probably going to have a huge audience, and should be interesting. All right, I'm going to do one last poll. Because we know that Dan Flood is basically implicated as being a Fed. But do you think Brian Harpole, who basically his past is as a police officer, right? And he's had other training, and he's done intelligence training, he says. But is Brian Harpole a Fed as well? That's the question. All right, just looking at questions here. A lot of questions. Yeah. Everyone wants to see pictures. What was the pic Candace had on the banner tonight? Let's see. I assume you mean the thumbnail? The thumbnail banner? Oh, okay. Yeah, let me pull this up here really quick. If it'll, I don't know if I can zoom in on this in a good way to show it. Maybe that works. Okay, I'll try that. So from right to left, it looks like on the right, that's Dan Flood. That's like a high school picture or something with a flat top. And then middle is Wolves in Finance. That's Zach. And then on the left is Dan Flood. He's the one in the suit with a tie, and he's protecting someone. I don't know. I don't know what event this is, but it looks like maybe it's his wife or something. I'm not sure. I assume that's what you're talking about. Let's see. Yeah, a lot of people are saying this. They believe Mitch about seeing Erica. Something really interesting. I don't know if I can find it fast enough. Like, I don't want to sit here and waste a bunch of your time looking for it. But there was a really interesting thing that I heard earlier. So in the chat, really quick, just so I know where you guys are at as far as the knowledge in the audience, how many of you follow George Webb? So put a 1 if you follow George Webb, and put a 2 if you don't know who that is. Looks like we're about half and half. Okay, so George Webb has been investigating for quite a while. Let me pull up, and I think he's cracked some, pretty big stuff open. I just want to make sure that he gets the proper props here for the stuff he's been doing. Let me pull him up on X. All right. So this is George Webb, and he's an investigative journalist. And, I've heard people say some good things, some bad things, but he does a lot of good work. And he actually went to Fort Huachuca. And if you go to his YouTube channel and X as well, he has videos where he's on site at Fort Huachuca. I think he also went to the border, to the location that Mitch said was where the tunnel was. So let's see. Yeah, Tammy Hill. Yeah, check him out. I mean, just like with me, some people enjoy listening to me, and some people say that I'm not their cup of tea, right? And it's always that way. Some people love Candace, some don't. But George Webb, he's a good investigative journalist, and he's like boots on the ground. So he doesn't just sit at home and talk about it. He actually goes out and shows these things. So he also is the one who started the petition or whatever it was, I believe, for the audit. right? Like an official audit of TPUSA. So that's something that he's been actively working on. But the reason I was showing him is because he made a very interesting statement today. He not only did he say that someone says I'm all right, bruv, but he is nuts. You know what? Some of the most brilliant people in the world are nuts. Unfortunately, it kind of comes with the territory. Yeah, shoe leather journalism, 100%. I mean, every time he goes live, he's in a new location. So I thought it was awesome that he actually went to Fort Huachuca and that he went to the location that Mitch said on the border and other places too, right? I believe like the gym that either, I can't remember if it was Candace or Mitch or someone was talking about, it was like a hub for people to meet. He went there as well. So what he said today, if you remember, do you remember when Mitch Snow had the message on X where he says that his father was the Zodiac killer? He basically, in his live today, based on a few different things that he is like connected and looking into, he's saying in theory, based on the person that might be his father, Mitch's father, and what he knows about that person, he actually comes out and says it is possible that this guy may be the Zodiac killer, which means that Mitch's father might actually be the Zodiac killer. And I thought that's crazy for him to say something like that and kind of admit it. Again, it's like alleged. He's just saying that I think, he could be theoretically, but that's interesting for him to say that because George Webb doesn't just come out and just say anything, right? So that's extremely interesting. Now, also remember, yeah, normal is overrated, but also remember too that, a lot of this stuff, almost everything that actually, I think everything, to be honest, everything that Mitch has said directly from his mouth, so far, everything has been true as far as I know. Now, some people said that message was like someone hacked his account, and I couldn't find anything that said that, but supposedly his account was hacked and they put that information in, and that was from like December or something, like, it was from a while ago. But very interesting. Yeah, I thought the son of a Zodiac killer wrote a book. Actually, so yeah, let me pull this up really quick. You guys have me chasing all these side quests. There is an amazing channel. Let's see. I believe her name is Call Me Chris. Have you ever heard of her? Call Me Chris. Yeah, her. Call Me Chris. Zodiac killer. Yeah, this one.
Crime, conspiracy.
Wow, that's loud. This is her. Let me get this adjusted. Okay. So this is Call Me Chris. And yes, she's super cute. But let's see. Hold on. Let's see. Someone asked about Mitch. Let's see. What does George think about Mitch? Paraphrasing and not trying to put words in his mouth. I'm just going completely off memory. So make sure you double check him. I believe he says that Mitch is a Fed of some sort, like a Fed plant or a Fed. That's the last I've heard. So, which, that gets thrown around. People have called me a Fed. They've called Kelly Raybon a Fed as well. And I've called her a Fed. All right. So I don't know how much weight that holds, but that's definitely what he's saying. Okay. Yep. And that's the thing is, so like this here, this person says they've been following the Zodiac for 30 years. This is a huge thing that people talk about. And this video from her, hopefully you guys can see this here. This has 6.4 million views just this year. So this is something that people are still really interested in. And this video specifically, there's this guy that comes out. Let me see if I can find. She does a really good job of covering this. So if you get a chance, make sure you watch this video. But it's Call Me Chris with a K, Kallme Chris, Kris. Did a TikToker solve the Zodiac killer case? But there's this guy on TikTok. See if I can find him. This, right, where is he at? I just saw him there. This guy here. So this guy says that he has proof that his grandfather was the Zodiac killer, is what it sounds like. and she gets super in depth. She does a really good job. Her entire channel. It used to be just comedy, like skits, but now she talks about stuff like this, like, you know, real crime, true crime. And if you are interested in the Zodiac Killer, this is a must watch. This dude basically breaks it down and talks about how there's certain things that happen. For example, like there's a killing where there's a taxi or something and someone gets killed in the taxi, and it's in the neighborhood and area where this guy who's on the screen, he claims that his grandfather was a police officer. And then if you know anything about the Zodiac Killer, there's all this stuff going around where he killed like couples that were out on like the romantic points, you know, and they would go out in their car and they'd make out and do other stuff. And the Zodiac Killer would go and kill them. And then he'd leave some kind of, you know, he sent like a message a couple of days later or something, like a Zodiac or some kind of mystery puzzle or something for the police, and claim responsibility and say, you're never going to catch me, type of thing. Well, this guy said that his grandfather, I believe it is, was at a lot of those, in those areas, and he had a patrol car that was unmarked, and he was a sheriff. So if you watch it, a lot of this stuff makes it seem like that, like it could be legit. But is this Mitch's father? Is this kid's, you know, if this kid's grandfather, how would that be? If this kid's grandfather is the Zodiac Killer and Mitch says his father's the Zodiac Killer, then that means that this kid would be Mitch's kid, right? Or maybe he's, you know, adopted or a half, or maybe Mitch has a brother. I don't know, but it's just really, really interesting. Let's see. Yeah, I just can't compute that many coincidences for snow. It would truly be insane. Yeah, I mean, there's so many things, like people basically said, you know, there's no way what he's saying is true. 100% I can guarantee that everything that Mitch has said is BS. Then it came out. Yeah, someone said our nephew. Yeah. But yeah, no one's been able to really prove him wrong yet. And I believe he's owed some money from some people as well. And let me see. Make sure I don't miss any of these. Victoria Marie, thanks for the super. New Braunfels is pronounced New Braunfels. All right, thank you. It sounds like you're pronouncing it correctly. Awesome. I appreciate it. Yeah, when she said it, I just when I typed it in, I typed it like 4 different ways because I had no idea how to spell that. Yeah, Uncle Mitch. So now that's something, if you really want to dig into something, right? Like the Charlie Kirk stuff is obviously ongoing, but if you want to dig into something interesting, follow this video, follow this Call Me Chris video on that TikToker, and see if you can dig into that Zodiac stuff. It's really interesting. George Webb isn't just a journalist, he leads people astray. I have heard some people insinuate that maybe he was an agent or something similar, but the hard part about journalism is, you know, everyone's basically doing a best guess with the information that they have. And it is easy to lead people astray if you're following the wrong lead, right? So, I mean, I would say that kind of goes with the territory, but if it happens a lot, then that might imply something different. I don't think I would admit to my family being the Zodiac, kind of like the Bundy wife daughter. Yeah, and many of them changed their names, right? I think Mitch Snow has changed his name multiple times. I know if I was related to some serial killers, I would probably at least change my last name, right? Or maybe not tell people what town I'm from or something similar. Let's see. Didn't George say that Candace was going to get a public lynching? Not cool. Yes, he did. And he got a lot of backlash for that. I believe that, I believe Coach Colin also called him out on it too. But yeah, I mean, it's the wording, right? You know, it's the fact that she's of African-American descent. And he says that she was going to get public lynching. Probably not the best use of words. But, I mean, I don't assume nefarious intent up front unless it's a pattern, right? Interesting. Some people don't like Mitch. Do you think, let's see, Mr. Darcy, you're saying that Mitch is a scumbag. So do you think that the stuff that was on Paramount Tactical and with Valhalla, is that why you think that? Or is it something else? Do you think the stuff that the women were saying and all that stuff is true? Actually, let's do that. and I know this is like kind of old news, but I'm really interested. Put a 1 in the chat if you think Mitch is legit. Put a 2 in the chat if you think that he is what Paramount showed, like a woman abuser and all that stuff. Yeah, it looks like most people are saying they think he's legit. I've only seen a couple 2s. So, yeah, I mean, based on that alone, I would say it's probably, let's see, 1 but more story to come. Let's see. Paramount's a Fed. I don't know. I don't know if there's any proof he's a Fed, but he definitely has very strong opinions about Candace and that whole angle on everything, right? Dankster Intel in the house. What's going on, Dank? Actually, I was trying to get a hold of you if you're still here. I was going to see if you wanted to do an interview, or just like a joint podcast here pretty shortly. But if you don't know who Dank is, he's the one that's doing a lot of the financial stuff, and a lot of the information other people are doing, he's feeding that to them. And he was also featured on Ian Carroll as well. Let's see, just tuning in to keep up. Great work. Have you ever heard of feds working with businesses or citizens on a private level? Am I understanding all of this properly? Yes, I have. Let's see. So I have. So for anyone that's, only knows me as like the investigator or the podcaster, I've been doing firearms training, and I'm a firearms instructor, and I've been doing martial arts and that kind of stuff most of my life. And a lot of the guys that I train with are, FBI agents, Marines, Navy SEALs, intelligence, and that kind of stuff. And yes, feds do work with businesses and citizens on a private level, and they may do it as a subcontractor on their own, which could run into a conflict of interest. But as far as like the government sponsoring that, I don't know if that's a thing, right? I don't know if the U.S. government says, Bed Bath & Beyond, sure, you can use our agent for your purposes over there. I'm not sure if that happens. But yeah, Dank, hit me up on X. Should be TriggerSmart HQ on X. All right, let's see here. And actually, let me show it really quick if you haven't seen.
Yeah, we're the Zodiac Killers.
Zodiac Killer. This is Dank's channel here. Original Dankster. He also did a song. Let's see, where's that song at? He did a song for Charlie Kirk. Yeah, this We Are Charlie. Go check that out. It's actually a pretty good song. And I don't know if it's AI or if you did this yourself, Danks, but it turned out pretty good. And then he goes into the financials. It's like he was the one that talked about North Korea and possible links with all that and the life insurance. So he has some good stuff. Go check it out. Show him some love. All right, let's see. So make sure I don't miss any questions here. All right, let me look at this poll. Where'd my poll go? There it is. All right, is Brian Harple a Fed as well? 90% say yes. Pretty much what I expected. Some think he might be like the ringleader, right? When he talks about his credentials, they're extensive, just like his dad's. So I'd be curious, like, are these some kind of elite? Like, are these like elite trained soldiers that are brought up this way from childhood? They all kind of seem to follow the similar types of routes. So yeah, people are saying, let's see if I can catch this comment fast enough. Dankster, your music about Charlie was awesome. I shared it on X. Definitely go check out that song. Let's see. You said it doesn't matter if we give no love. No one ever reads our messages if we don't pay. I just proved you wrong. Let's see. Yep, Danks is on my playlist to catch every night. And and I know that's hard. Like, you have Candace, you have Baron, you have Ian, Jesse on Fire, Heavy Duty Country. Some people listen to me, Kelly Raybon, Dank. There's so many people. How can you possibly listen to everyone? I know, even myself, there's some nights where I'm like, okay, I have to choose between Valhalla, Baron, and 5 other people. How do I choose which one to watch? And sometimes I'll be up too late and I'll fall asleep listening to one because there's just so many. Hey, Ivan is Ivan. Thanks. People want to be your friend. Interesting. Baron, you Candace Danks. I'm not sure what that means. I'm trying to translate it, but nothing's coming to mind. Yeah, watch them all. Just make it happen. When you're in the bathroom, just put in your Bluetooth and just keep it playing. Let's see. Now, collaboration. Yeah. Some people are saying they enjoyed having Baron on with Kelly and I for the court stuff. Yeah, I mean, he gives a great perspective, and obviously being an actual lawyer, that gives a really good angle and a lot of stuff that we wouldn't think about. So we do have some, we had a couple other lawyers that we talked to that are criminal defense lawyers that we might actually be able to have on as well. So, and they might be able to get really in depth. Where was that? I just saw a message I was trying to find. I just saw, let's see, hammer. Is this it? Yeah. Misused the hammer as a weapon to intimidate his wife. So if you saw the full, I believe it was on Stu Peters. I know I'm showing you guys a whole bunch of stuff, but that's how I work. I like to be thorough with my research and information I share with you. I don't want to just have it be hearsay. Let's see, Stu Peters. Where are you at? I believe it's on Rumble. But he did an interview with Mitch Snow. Stu Peters Network, I believe. Here we go. All right, let me share this over here. See if we can find it here really quick. It's not showing up on that side. Here we go. This one here. I don't know if you can see this, especially on mobile. I apologize, you guys. I'm looking at the mobile vertical, and it's pretty tiny. If it's too small for you, you can definitely go over to the horizontal version. If you go back to my TriggerSmart page on YouTube, you can switch over to the horizontal. But yeah, so there's this, there's some analysis stuff, but there's also a couple of Mitch Snow episodes. And Stu Peters basically, they talk about that stuff. They talk about the hammer, and the video apparently was just a small short piece of it. According to Mitch, and then of course this is him saying it, is in that exchange, she had a gun in her hand. Okay, so this is what he's saying, right? So don't get mad at me and yell at me. But in the exchange, Mitch is saying that the woman, the wife, has a gun in her hand. And he actually names the gun and what model it is and everything else, some kind of handgun. And she's basically walking around filming him with a gun in her hand. And he said in the moment, with all the stuff going on and her threatening him and stuff, he said, he regrets that he overreacted or whatever. But yes, he hit the car with a hammer. He never hit her with a hammer, right? He never attacked her with a hammer, but she had a gun. So that is his official story. Yep. His wife had a gun. So, and that kind of stuff happens a lot in domestic disputes. You'll have someone who's, they basically gaslight the person, piss them off. And then when the person gets pissed off and reacts, then they start filming and they say, he's violent, he's aggressive, he's whatever, fill in the blank, right? I see you, Tina. But yeah, so let me see if there's any more. Nope, no more supers. Let me see if there's any last questions to grab here really quick. I don't want to take up too much of your time. This was a review of Candace's show tonight. Yeah, Stu Peters also did a interview with John Bray. That was really good. I appreciate your open-mindedness, TriggerSmart, on everything you cover. Hey, Gregory. Yeah, I try not to, I don't get like emotional about this stuff. I'm not emotionally attached to a specific thing. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, no one expects everyone to be a member for everyone and everyone to do like a ton of super chats and stuff to everyone, right? It's not feasible. So you just pick a couple, pick your favorite, and you just go from there. And yes, Coach Colin was on Baron today in one of his member streams. I didn't get to see it yet, but that should be interesting as well. Yep, Baron had Coach on today. All right, so what I'm going to do is one last question, and just put a 1 or 2 in chat. If you think, well, how do I want to phrase this? So obviously there was a whole bunch of information that came out up front. There's the Fort Huachuca stuff. Obviously there's been all the different theories. Some have more weight or make a little bit more sense than others. But we've gotten to the point now where everything's kind of laid out. Everything's out there. And unfortunately, there are people who are on X and other places who are fighting about their theories. I don't know if it's like an ego thing, but they'll say your theory can't be right because mine's right. So they will say horrible things to each other and just constantly attack each other. And sometimes I'm in the middle because I've shared multiple different people with different theories, but that's not going to get to an answer, right? So people, you need to work together. Do not fight each other. Do not battle each other. Don't talk bad about each other. This is supposed to be a group effort. So let's be on the same page, please. Yep, a lot of egos, a lot of big egos. Let's see, I saw a question. Let's see. TriggerSmart, do you think the media, including the independent media, has intentionally misled the public? Yes, definitely. And I think that, yeah. So regular media, yes, they push a certain narrative. Obviously, they are owned by certain people, and those companies will tell them what to say, what they can and can't say, and which direction to lean. And then for independent media, there's definitely people, it's been proven, there's people who have been paid to say certain things. That's been proven. And there's a campaign, I forget what the name of the company is. There's a company that was associated with like 8 or 10 or 12 different people that were like anti-Candace. And they all basically had the exact same messaging come out at the same time on the same day. So clearly there's like a smear campaign and they're paid to do it. So they would technically be independent media, right? So that would be intentionally misleading the public. Now it is, I see people saying that everyone should work together and collaborate. Yeah, I mean, it's, so imagine if you're trying to collaborate. This is giving you an example of what some of these creators and stuff are going through. Take a situation where one side is saying Charlie died in some kind of manner, right? And then the other side is saying, no, he's alive, 100% he's alive. For them to collaborate doesn't work because there's no common ground. Now, if you have two people that say, well, Charlie, he died that day, right? He passed away, but they have slightly different methods of how it may have happened, they might be able to come to some kind of agreement or figure out which pieces of each of their theories kind of fit together. But when they're on opposite ends of the spectrum, I think that's where a lot of the issues come out. You said Candace just said she forgot to tell us that Dan Flood's father ran Army intelligence at Fort Huachuca. What? Hold on a second. Is that on X? That's a big piece. I'm going to see if that's on X. She forgot it during her show. Did she say it in the questions at the end? Or did she post it somewhere? Oh, okay. Let's show this. This is important. See if I can make this bigger. All right. So this is after her show today, and she's talking about all this different stuff with Dan Flood and his father and everything else. She said, forgot to mention on today's show, Dan Flood's father ran Army intelligence at Fort Huachuca. It's on his LinkedIn. And Fort Huachuca has allegedly been linked to many different things that might possibly be nefarious, according to Mitch. Well, Mitch was just a witness, so I don't want to say Mitch said those things. But according to Candace and some other sources, it seems as though there's something sinister going on there. And if Dan Flood's father ran intelligence there, and Dan has a very long past with Harpole and other people in intelligence and protection and this these kind of fakey charity events to raise money for FBI people. This is interesting. Yeah, another layer, all connected. Yeah, they're all like in the same arena. It's really interesting. It's like a club that no one else can be in, right? But that is interesting. Thanks for sharing that. Because I probably never would have seen that otherwise. You said, why are people talking about New Braunfels? What did I miss? That is where, basically, it's where Dan Flood and some other people live. Some big donors for TPUSA, I believe, as well. And Erica Kirk has traveled there multiple times in her plane, and may be indicated in some of these intelligence operations and the people that are kind of connected, according to Candace's show today. If you go early in the stream, you'll see I talk about all the details of all that stuff. I don't want to reiterate it for the people that have been here. Ivan is Ivan. Thanks for the super. Trigger, with all you know, what do you think happened to Charlie? So I've been asked this almost every show now, and I'm kind of stuck between three different things. So again, all theories, but a shot from somewhere with some type of bullet that works for the situation, with the caveat that I think the medical examiner's report that we've heard, which we know it's false from Andrew Colvett, according to Candace, but I don't think it was what they said, like it hit the C1 and turned down and all that stuff. I think all that's a load of crap. Secondly, maybe it's something to do with the exploding mic theory from John, mostly because of all the little pieces of plastic and things we've seen like flying away on camera, assuming those aren't bugs and that kind of stuff. That is probably the second. And then, just the fact that everyone's acting so strange around him, or I should say around, TPUSA and Erica and everything are acting so strange, and lack of emotion, and not really acting like it actually happened, almost like, they just like moved on from it. The fake death theory is interesting, especially since Elgeist, behind the scenes, Elgeist and I have talked to some other physicists. Some are at American universities, and we're not going to say who, obviously, but they've looked at his information. They've looked at it in their own way, using their own algorithms and their own, mathematics and everything else in physics. And they came to the same conclusion that he did, that the bullet didn't actually hit Charlie. So I find that very interesting. So to answer your question, I think it could be a couple different things. And that's why I always tell people, if anyone says 100% definitively that they know what happened, then I think they're full of it, at least at this point. You said that's also where Mitch broke his back, New Braunfels. Do you know that for a fact, Vicky? What's your source? There's not a military base, is there? Let's see. How do you spell that? New Braunfels, Texas, military. Let's see. New Braunfels, Texas has strong military ties through local veteran support, community involvement, veteran programs, housing initiatives, and its proximity to San Antonio's largest military presence. Interesting. So it looks like it's close to, they call it Military City, USA. Interesting. Close to San Antonio, Fort Sam Houston, Randolph Air Force Base, and Lackland Air Force Base, creating a large military population in the region. Interesting. I mean, that makes a lot more sense, right? If it's like a military area, military town, military ties in the community, that would make sense for retired cops and FBI agents and all that kind of stuff to be there. Yeah, a lot of people saying that with John Bray. I did see something today too. John was saying that he kind of got, I don't know if he got flagged or got a warning or something on X, but it looks like he's at risk of possibly maybe losing that account. I don't know if he was like being serious when he said it, but he did say he got like a strike or something over there on a post. Yeah, I mean, that shrapnel and the stuff on the bottom makes it very difficult to just immediately dismiss the exploding mic theory or exploding something theory, right? Good question. Where's the proof of a bullet? I mean, that goes with where's the proof that any of his vertebrae got destroyed? There were reports that he had chest damage and his heart was destroyed. Where's the proof of any of that? If we don't have a official coroner's report or an autopsy report, then we're just taking people's word for it. And as we know, Andrew Colvett seemingly made up his own version of what happened, possibly hearing it from Erica Kirk, according to Candace. And yeah, that means that none of it could be true. It might all be complete BS, and we might have just been looking at the wrong things and investigating the wrong leads. And all these methods people are saying as possible ways that he may have passed, they were trying to bend it and form it to fit into that. And since that has been basically said to be incorrect, people kind of had to start from square one again. And I think that's where the the frangible ammo and the accelerator round and some of those other things now. Yeah, some people think he's still alive. I think Kelly, sorry, I'm sniffling. I have allergy stuff going on. But I believe Kelly Raybon did a live last night, and she had a guest on, and they go pretty deep. So if you are one of the people in that camp that thinks Charlie is still alive, that's definitely a good live to go back and watch. Yeah, his lapel mic, the wireless mic, not the one in his hand. Where did the cavitation come from? That's a big argument right now. There's some people that are trying to figure out if it was high-speed cavitation or so like if you look at the gel, actually I'll just show you. I like to show examples. I will talk about things, but I'm a visual person. So let me find some here's a good one. And make sure it's not loud. Let me share this with you. So I'm sure you've seen this or similar types of things. So if you see that, this is something that Elgeist was really, really talking about. He was trying to dismiss a gunshot narrative. Is you see as the bullet comes in, let me see if I can slide along this. Will it let me? So as that bullet comes in from the right side and it travels through, the cavitation is going perpendicular, right? So as the bullet is going left to right, or in this case, right to left, the cavitation is going up and down. So if he was shot in the front, the cavitation would theoretically go up and down his neck, in theory, right? Or up and down his body. And you do see his neck kind of get a little bit bigger. But the weird thing is there's something kind of in the back, and you see it, and you'll see his white t-shirt is really puffed out, and it looks very strange. And it doesn't really fit the cavitation thing. And I know some people from early on, like Valhalla was saying that he thought maybe the cavitation could have broken the necklace. But then after learning how long the necklace was and how big it was, that didn't make as much sense. And then you had people like Chris Martinson and Range State Bro. They actually went out and did some testing, and they found that in their tests, they put a necklace on the dummy and it's gel. So it's not a 1-to-1 for, human tissue and fascia and muscle and ligaments and tendons and everything else. But the gel itself did deform enough to break the chain. I don't know if the chain was to scale. I'd have to go back and check, but I found it very interesting. So your question, make sure I answered your actual question. Where did the cavitation come from? So cavitation is where any high-speed projectile going fast enough or like an explosion hitting you moves the fluid in your body. So if it was a gunshot, then it's the gunshot traveling through at its insane speeds. And as it goes through, it moves that fluid, and that causes cavitation. If it's an explosion or something similar, then it's basically causing a wave in the air, and that wave hits your body, and then it goes through the fluid in your body. So cavitation can come from a couple different things. Make sure I don't miss any of these. Let's see. William, thanks for the super. Ask who went to Fort Huachuca after the assassination to return the weapon that can now be hidden in plain sight. That's a good question. Crystals Malin. Erica wants to fast track the trial. Okay, now this is interesting. I'm glad you brought this up. So Baron kind of addressed it, and thanks for the super chat, by the way. Now, Baron kind of addressed this, but he said that, it's not unusual to want a fast and, like what they call it, a fair and speedy trial or something similar. And every state has some variation of that. So to him, having looked at it, he doesn't see anything wrong with it. Like, he doesn't see it as being like a red flag or something. Like, she's trying to like speed it up so that they can like avoid certain evidence being discovered or something like that. But when it first came out, people are like, oh man, there's something there, right? Like, holy crap, she wants it to go fast. It's not necessarily a bad thing. And I think he gave the example too of, I think was it a president? No, it was a king. I believe it was a king that would have like political opponents and just keep them in jail for really long periods of time and not give them, they just basically just rot. They just sit there and rot. So just make sure that, it's not cruel to the criminal or, possible criminal. I don't give a damn. Thanks for becoming a member. Dankster Intel gifted 5 TriggerSmart memberships. Hey guys, make sure you thank Danks. Thank him by subscribing to his channel. And if you're still in chat, thanks for gifting those memberships. That's awesome. Let's see. Nika the Truth Sleuth. That's say that 5 times fast. Trigger, please read the comments I've already written in the comment section. It's important. I'm the commenter about the GATE program on Candace. I don't know how easily I can find that. Let me see. I might have to look at it after. They do not make it easy in StreamYard. I can't search or anything like that. So let's see. Yeah, we can do that. We can do a poll on the John Bray theory, because I'm curious now with other stuff that's come out and other conversations people have had, what people think now. So let's say, do you believe in the John Bray theory? I'll say John Bray Mike theory. I learned my lesson on using too descriptive of words in my titles and stuff. Woo! Yeah. So I'm laughing about it, but it's not funny. But YouTube basically started demonetizing some of my videos based on the titles and some of the content. So that's why I've kind of backed off a little bit on the mic stuff and the fake death theories and that kind of thing. At least for a while, right? I don't want to get my channel. I've already kind of gotten a warning, right? Like, I put that post out saying they were doing an audit, but I don't want to give them excuses. So as far as the autopsy goes, there was the mortician who said that it did happen, or she thinks it happened, or something similar. And she said, I think she had access to it or something, but she said it happened. And then Brian Harple said it happened. I don't know if it will ever be released publicly. Actually, let me look. Let me ask Grok how often they publicly release these. How often are, I guess, would it be a homicide autopsies released to public? I would guess not very often. And this might take a second here, but I would guess it's probably not very often at all. John Bray, 75% sure. That's decently high. I mean, believing in a theory 75%. There's a lot that I'm not even at 50%. Everything Erica has done has been to be a cover-up. This is Grok is not usually that slow. I must know I'm in alive. Yeah, that's a great question. You know, if Charlie's alive, where is he? Where is he at? And he'd have to. I mean, he would have to change. In theory, I mean, he's like 6'5". He'd have to change his look. You know, he'd have to get like plastic surgery or wear masks or something. I assume he couldn't have any contact with any of his family. I don't know how that works, but I assume he'd have to completely disappear. All right, let's see what it says. In states like North Carolina and Texas, finalized autopsy reports are typically treated as public records and can be requested by anyone. I did not know that. Interesting. Though there may be some fees. Okay. In contrast, places like New York and Florida classify them as confidential, with releases requiring authorization. Okay. So, all right. It's all state dependent, but it sounds like some states it's public information and other states you have to pay for it or be like next of kin or something similar. Now, I will tell you, I got an interesting email yesterday, or was it last night? I got an interesting email and they said they pulled a report. Actually, so I don't want to, I'm not going to dox them, but let me pull this up over here. Make sure I'm not sharing that screen. Yeah. Pull this email here really quick. So I had someone that messaged me and sent some kind of report. Here we go. Background info. A Spokio report. That's what it is. It's called Spokio. And they say, take it at face value. They did a Spokio report. They said Erica Kirk's Spokio report has been removed. So Spokio is a site where they can pull all the information about someone, kind of aggregated from several different sources. And a lot of people use it for dating. I haven't used it, but so if you are meeting a new person, especially if you met them online, you can pull the Spokio report and supposedly see everything about them. And I think it also includes that criminal stuff or whatever. But they're saying that Charlie's info might have been selectively edited to give the impression that Charlie is not dead, using his name as it shows. But Eric is not showing, but Lori France V, hers shows. So it's interesting that Erica's isn't. And then it says, and it's been shared with multiple people, including Candace, I believe. But it says, I'm trying to pull the report. All right, here it is. Trying to see if it confirms. Yeah. Actually, can I zoom on this? If I can zoom. I'm trying to zoom without doxing this person. Is that working? Okay, let me show you this. All right. So this is a Spokio report, background report for Charles Kirk. His address in Scottsdale, Arizona, age 32, and date of birth, October 1993. So assuming this is the correct person. Is deceased is no. So I found that very interesting. You know, if this kind of fades like the he's still alive narrative, but I know in some cases they keep those records of the deceased and certain things for like 50 years before they'll actually make it public to things like this. So, you know, it depends on the state, but is deceased, Charlie Kirk, Spokio report says no. So, and then it talks about a bunch of other details about him and cell phones and all that kind of stuff. I don't want to put all that information out there like that, but you know, it's interesting. So someone says they DM'd me. Why wouldn't the age be 32? It's a good question. Let's see. Actually, yeah, good question. Is let's see. What was Charlie's age at death? I think he was officially 31. Does it say anywhere? That's funny. I just put Charlie, not Charlie Kirk. Yeah, he was officially 31 years old, according to this. But that report said 32. That's interesting. Again, take that with a grain of salt. It's a report someone sent me. They said it was interesting, they thought. And they pulled Erica Kirk's and Lori's as well. They did not see Erica Kirk show up at all in Spokio, but her mother did. And then they pulled this Charlie Kirk one, and the other stuff seems to align, except now the age, which is interesting, by 1 year, maybe just months, right? And then says he's not dead, or at least there's no death certificate. Very, very interesting. Let's see, we covered that. Read your comments. Let's see, Shrex85, thanks for becoming a member. Jax K9, I'm with John Bray, Jay Bray. My only thought is, if the bullet was intended to end up in the water next to Charlie, okay, if the pieces from explosive hand not penetrated his neck, how would his death been explained? What did I say, Charlie? So wherever the bullet would have went, you know, it could have been the water, it could have been, you know, like Al Guy says, the trunk. It could have been shot over the top and hit the pond behind him or something. But that doesn't work according to audio forensics, but it's not the end all be all. But you're saying, how could his hand have been hit and his neck? Is that what you're asking? So, I mean, the explosion can be in multiple different directions. And according to John, there was maybe possibly multiple explosions. So, you know, I think you're saying like one would kind of lift it away from, you know, like lift it away from the body. And then the other one would fire the actual jet that would actually do the damage. But, you know, that first one, when that jet fires, that kind of explodes multiple directions. And that could explain, you know, maybe the shrapnel and stuff that people are seeing it around. I believe it was Sam Parker has a really good post on X where he shows multiple different angles, video and images that show little black pieces, you know, that are around that exact moment that something happens, that the event happens. So that's how we explain that. Let's see, Dankster Intel, thanks for becoming a member. I will also join yours as well. Let's see, DM Chase, thanks for becoming a member. Dankster Intel, after a plant exploded, hard not to believe, Ray. Yeah, I mean it's right. Like there's no such thing as a coincidence. I believe Erica Kirk said. And for those who don't know, the John Bray theory is that the wireless mic, I usually have one up here. I don't have one. The wireless mic exploded allegedly, and that caused the damage that we saw and the injuries and killed him. And then John is saying that based on his research, that a plant 30 days after Charlie was killed, a plant in Tennessee exploded. And this plant, well, part of a plant, it wasn't the whole thing, but it was a building of that area. And it exploded and it was completely wiped off the map, right? Like it's gone. Killed 16 employees that day. And the interesting thing is not just the timing. So it was within like 30 days of I think he said it was within like 30 days of like him mentioning the theory or something similar. And he says that, you know, maybe part of him felt somewhat responsible, but yeah, they made commercial and military grade shape charges and explosives. So, and I believe some people were on the ground and went there and tried to interview people and talk to them. I won't say who or what because I don't know what content they got and I don't want to mess up their surprise, but it's very interesting. No one seems to really want to talk in that town. So yeah, hard not to believe him for sure. Steelers Girl, thanks for the super. Hard to believe Charlie Kirk was fooled by all the Israeli lovers working behind his back at TPUSA. CK was so smart, ? I can't understand how he was fooled. Yeah, that's there's a video that I watched earlier today. It was a smaller channel. And if I can remember who it was or go back in my history and find it, I'll post it in a post on my channel. But they were basically saying there's no way, like you said, Charlie being as smart as he was, being like this wonder kid who had an insane memory, talked so well, knew so much information, read people very well, and over communicated everything, right? How could he not know that his wife is in all these alleged situations? How could he not know that, you know, it seems like half the staff that was immediately around him had some kind of criminal activity and some got pardoned by like Trump, for example. Some have like allegations of, SA, right? Like abuse, touching, and that kind of stuff. And it's if I'm around people that are that way, especially for years, right? For multiple years at a time, and they're my best friend, or I see them regularly, I know when they're doing something they shouldn't be doing. I can find those like character flaws and stuff in their behavior or things they say, or they'll say something a month ago that doesn't match up with something they say today. And I'm like, hold on a second. Like you said a month ago this, right? And I call them out on it. People find it almost impossible to believe that Charlie did not know something about this stuff. So the Doge audit, well, Doge, what they call it? It wasn't audit. What's the word they want him to use? Doge effort. The Doge effort, maybe Charlie was starting to figure things out. And in all fairness, for his side of things, he was on the road. He's always running around. He's always being the face of TPUSA and delegated all the responsibility out to everyone else. And that could explain why he wasn't aware of these things. But I get your question. A lot of people, the longer this goes and the more stuff that's found out about the people around him, the more they're saying it's impossible that he was not part of it or did not know about it. Desiree Sullivan, thanks for the super. I'm not sure if you forgot a message, but I appreciate it. And Punch Bowl Puppy, thanks for the super chat. Saw a comment on Ian's live Friday that Lance Twig's parents' house was paid off in November or December. It said they had a loan for 20 years with multiple late payments in the past. Interesting. And Lance Twiggs also had FBI protection. So what would be the explanation for that? Who would pay for that? Who would pay for Lance Twig's parents' house that they defaulted or had late payments on? And is it related to this whole Charlie Kirk thing? It's very interesting. And him having FBI protection is also interesting because is that normal? Is that standard procedure? Especially considering that this is a local case in Utah. This is not a federal case. So for him to have FBI watching him and taking care of him and protecting him seems outside of their duties for a local case. Let's see. Jax K9, thanks for the super. Sorry, typing from my phone. My prayer was to be if the explosive had not penetrated his neck, how would his death be explained? Oh, how would it have been explained? Okay, I gotcha. A lot of people talk about this. They think they're just making it up on the fly, right? That seems to be the general consensus is like certain things happened that they were not accounting for or expecting, and they just kind of keep morphing the story as things come up to try to like make it all fit. That's probably the best way to explain it. Tammy Hill, thanks for the super. Why would they concrete the area where Charlie was if it was only a bullet? Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I early on, I was talking about, I think it was 3 days. People said, why would they concrete over that in 3 days? That's so fast. They're trying to hide something. And playing devil's advocate, I thought to myself, well, how many days does the FBI and the local police, how many days do they need to actually get the evidence they need? If you have 3 whole days, I doubt they'd let it go overnight, right? But you collect whatever you can from the scene. You do blood, you do fingerprints. If there's a bullet, then if there's shrapnel or something, they would grab that. They look for blood splatter, up on top and on the back of the tent and everything else. Collect all their evidence. And I was like, well, within 3 days, that's probably plenty of time to do all that. But, when they brought up certain things, like Baron was saying, Baron and John both actually mentioned some chemical that could have been present with the explosive if that's what happened. And it would like cause seizures and stuff like that. So it would be imperative that they cover up that area to keep people safe. If it was in the grass or, laying around, if someone were to go over there and lay on that spot and lay out their laptop and they're typing up, for their class, and they come into contact with some of that stuff, they could have had a seizure and maybe died if it's the chemical they thought it was. So good question. And why cover it up and put all the planters out there? And actually, I don't know if everyone's seen that. Let me see if I can find that picture really quick. I believe it was Jason Goodman did a walkthrough that was really good. See if I can find this here. I might not be able to find it fast enough for my liking. Yeah, I can't find it fast enough. But basically they concreted over it, and there's like someone said there's 33. I haven't verified that, but they said there's supposedly 33 planters or pots or something that are there. And someone even mentioned that the plant or some of the plants in the pots are the type that would make it difficult for a canine to sniff out, like if there was some kind of like, explosive material or something similar. Now, again, this is all, rumors, allegations. No one's proved any of this stuff, but it's interesting for sure. I heard that. Let's see. Did the judge order no release of video footage? I thought I heard that. Not sure, though. I'm not sure what you mean by release of video footage, but people can film in court. And also, I believe there's something official now where they cannot film Tyler Robinson's mouth. They don't want people reading lips, because last time some, professional lip reader came out with some BS about what he was saying. And, his defense is saying that can paint the case in a certain way. But there will be cameras allowed. There's still audio. All that stuff is going to continue unless, I hope this doesn't happen. I hope a cameraman isn't like paid off to keep doing this stuff, so they take away media. But as of right now, we should be able to see everything as far as I know. This judge is he's kind of hardcore. They wanted to get rid of media in the court. They basically wanted to do closed cases, at least for the last one, right? And I think they were trying to set the precedent for future ones to also be closed. And he was like, no, that's not happening. So hopefully he keeps that up. I think the public deserves to see what's going on. Let's see. So I was asking, yeah. Okay. So if his birthday was in October and that Spokio report was pulled after, then it would show him as 32. That makes perfect sense. Because if it shows him as not deceased, then the calendar keeps rolling. So it would say he's 32. Correct. Because this year he will turn 32. Yep. Awesome. Yeah. That makes perfect sense. Let's see. Just make sure I get all the super chats and everything here. Yeah, a lot of people talking about that 32 years old. And for people who are just joining, I see some people coming in. There is a Spokio report that someone sent me that showed Charlie Kirk still as alive. It didn't say he was deceased, but it showed him as 32 years old. And people are saying, well, if his birthday was in October and the report still thinks he's alive, they're just going to show him as 32 instead of 31. Yeah, he died a month before his birthday. John Bray Algai stream. Yeah, I think it'd be interesting. I think a John Bray Algai stream would be interesting. I also think a John Bray Jordan Henshaw stream would be interesting, because they're on like complete opposite ends of the spectrum, and they go at it on X all the time. So yeah, maybe I'll see if I can make that happen. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. So I want to check his email to verify, but Audio Freq, where's it at? I don't want to ruin the surprise if he hasn't confirmed yet. Let's see. Yeah. So it looks like Audio Freq, he has some new information on apparently a spot that will actually work with audio forensics for the location of a possible, he calls it a sonic event, but basically a gunshot, right? And I asked him personally to look for the exploding mic theory. I wanted him to test the audio in that area, right where Charlie Kirk was in the tent, and see if there's something there that would support that. And then separately, he's already checked the Losey Center and he ruled that out. That's the official FBI narrative. He checked the Sorensen Center, which I hope you guys appreciate the visuals like I do. It makes things so much easier to explain. Let's see, Google Earth. When people start talking about things and they don't have visuals with it, sometimes I just check out. All right, share this over here. Okay. So moving down here. All right, so here's what's been ruled out theoretically so far. So the Losey Center, which is here, this was the, I believe it's this one here. This was the Tyler location, right? This is the supposed FBI official narrative location. And then the second one that he's ruled out so far is kind of the Dr. Martinson Sorensen Center location, which is basically here, right? And that was across from the Life is Driving video, if you've seen that. And then what he's testing now is actually on location here. I don't know if you can see my mouse or not, but he's actually testing on location here for the exploding mic theory or some kind of explosion or something there. But what he did, I believe it was yesterday or today, is he tested, if you remember, Range Day Bro came out and he mentioned something about, you know, somewhere in this area. I believe he said it was here. And, you know, everyone figured out that that probably wouldn't work. There's this tiny little, I don't know if I can zoom in enough. There's this like tiny little, maybe 1 foot wide gap between these buildings. And I think he was maybe implying that like the shooter could shoot through there from here. And, you know, that was a possibility, but that doesn't really fit with the injury that was seen. Because typically if you have that, if you had an exit wound in the front, if that was an exit wound and not an entrance, then you would have like stuff would be flying out with it as the bullet comes out. And we don't see that. We see the wound kind of appear and then there's like a 1 second delay and then the blood comes out. We would expect like a full spray, like, you know, like something very gory. But somewhere in this area, I'm not going to say where, because I want to show this with him. Somewhere in this area, on this building, somewhere over here, there is one that checks out for audio forensics that actually would work for a shot. So, yeah, I think we're going to cover that tomorrow. I know that, you know, obviously Candace and Baron are doing their show tomorrow. So most likely we would try to make it a little bit later. And depending on how busy things are, we might actually move it to Wednesday instead. But I plan to have Audio Freq back on. That's Matt. And he's going to show, finally, after doing process of elimination, he found a area that would work for an actual shot audio-wise, based on several different locations of phones and cameras and audio equipment that recorded it. And that's kind of exciting. Is it 100% definitive? I don't know. It depends on how much you believe in, you know, the audio forensics, but I think it'll be a really good show. So keep an eye out for that. All right, let's see here. Doom, doom, doom. Joey Nuggets. I like that name. It's like a gangster, like mafia. Like, hey, Joey Nuggets, you know, like, I don't know. I'm terrible at accents. Are you worried people won't accept actual evidence if it's presented? Not saying we blindly do, but it's starting to look more like entertainment for profit than a search for the truth. Yeah, I would agree with some of that. There's several people who've already said, even if they present perfect evidence of a gunshot by Tyler Robinson, that they still wouldn't buy it. I find that interesting. I think if they came forward and they had, you know, 4K footage of him on the roof with cameras from the Losey Center showing him go up there, take the shot, running off, jumping off. I don't think they would have footage of him like dumping the gun or anything, but there has to be footage of him with a gun. So if they have footage of him with the gun and footage of him taking a shot, you know, how can you really dispute it? And obviously the timestamps would have to be there. The metadata would have to be correct. It have to be on the right day, the right time. All that stuff would have to match. But if they provide that, then how can you really fight it? How can you argue it? A lot of people will say, well, there's more people involved. It goes deeper. Maybe there was some Bengay Vultra, if you know what I mean, type of stuff going on. That's possible. But if they show proof of him shooting, then that means he did the shot. That doesn't mean that he was the one who organized everything. It doesn't mean he acted alone, but it could mean that, you know, he was the one that officially did it. Savannah Barbieri, thanks for the super chat. Matt, I like John's theory, but I am leaning towards Alguy's theory also. That whole thing could be fake. Yeah, I mean, I've gotten to the point now where everyone's kind of said their piece and they presented all their information. I just don't know if so at first I was like kind of leaning towards you know, John Bray's theory. It was very interesting. And then I had Algeist on and he presented data and it was very interesting, backed by physics and all that. And I was kind of, you know, kind of iffy on that one. And then, like I said, another two physicists, one that worked with Jesse on Fire and another one that contacted us separately, who's independent. They have also verified his information, his data, his audio forensics, the path that he said the bullet took and everything. And we break that down in the last live that he was on with me with Jordan Henshaw. He breaks it down significantly. So if you're interested in that, that's definitely a good one to watch. But it's you almost get like theory fatigue, right? There's so many things going on, so much information. All of them have had enough time to try to validate their individual theory that it makes it so that a lot of them seem like they could possibly be plausible. And that makes it extremely difficult to pick one. Obviously, something's correct. We just don't know exactly which one yet. Let's see. Sarah Bren, thanks for becoming a member. Much appreciated. William, thanks for the super chat. Stand the block on its end vertically. Which block are we talking about? Did we have a block somewhere? I'm just looking through all this stuff. Yeah, I'm not sure what you're talking about with the block vertically there. And I did try to open again. I tried to open the Paramount Tactical 3D model and everything, which is amazing, but it murders your computer. So, and I have a very, very beefy gaming machine, like way overkill, and it even bogs mine down. But it is very useful to look at line of sight. So if it was a shot, including this one we're going to look at with Audio Freak, it gives you a very, probably within like, you know, 95%, 95 to 100% certainty that certain angles and stuff could or could not work. And I have another model that QNF Fee that Pete made for me. And for some reason, it's not opening now in SketchUp. But that one would just fly super fast. And everything was set up the exact same way. It had line of sights and actual like lasers going in between the shooter and the target. But it won't open for me, so I haven't brought it up in a while. GSD, German Shepherd Puppies. Thanks for the super. German Shepherds are amazing dogs. Oh, ballistic gel block. Okay, I got you. So, yeah. So that super was talking about standing up the ballistic gel block that we looked at earlier. Do I still have that open? Yeah. But now that's kind of similar to what Dr. Martinson did, right? He had I think it was like a torso only. So it was like the chest up and then it had the neck and he shot through the neck. And he had the same type of result. I mean, it expanded every direction like crazy. Like the amount of, if your body did that, I would expect your body to just tear apart into pieces. So that has theoretically been tested. Just want to make sure I'm not missing any supers. All right, let me check our poll over here. Do you believe in the John Bray Mike theory So now this theory's been out for a while. It's been out for, I think, at least a couple months. So 90% of you say yes, 10% say no. That's the exploding mic theory. Now that says a lot. Now let's ask, now that I'm interested. All right. So in that poll, 90% say yes. So 9 out of 10. Now let's do the same thing for the faked death theory. Do you believe Charlie faked his death? And of course, there's other variations of that. People will say that maybe he initially tried to fake his death and something went wrong. And then he actually ended up dying. Yeah, I think a lot of people would agree, Crystal. A lot of people are saying, the fake death theory is interesting. And some people say they can prove it. But, like I said, unless he's physically in front of you and he's talking and hanging out and you can shake his hand, there's no proof that he faked it. Let's see. Dr. Martinson is awesome. Love his Peak Prosperity channel. Yeah, Dr. Martinson really pulled me in during COVID-19. I mean, his honest reporting and all that stuff was a game changer during that time period. And ever since then, I think he started off doing financial stuff, but yeah, I would definitely recommend following Dr. Martinson on X and YouTube. And it's, like you said here, it's under Peak Prosperity is the name of his channel. Savannah Babiri, hey, a member for a month. Appreciate that. And I think, we're in our first month of memberships. Kind of exciting. I'm just looking at all your questions here. There's a lot of them. Let's see. Are you talking about Joey Nuggets? Dude is wasting his time. Charlie didn't have 5 garden hoses in his shirt. Let's see. Are you talking about Jordan? Yeah. So Jordan Henshaw, he actually took Mike McCash's course. Mike McCash is the guy who's the Hollywood special effects expert, especially when it comes to blood and squibs and that kind of stuff. And he took his, I think it was a 4-hour course officially. And now every night he's doing, let me see if I can show you. It's pretty interesting. I mean, I'm not saying that that's what happened, but his dedication alone, right? His dedication alone 100% deserves him a subscribe. All right, let's see. Let me get this all set up here. And some of it, a lot of the stuff you can't show because he shows fake fluids that look like real fluids, and YouTube does not like that. So I will show you shirt behavior. Yeah, I'll show you this one. All right. So this is him, and I apologize if this is loud. He's using a little CO2 gun. But this is the kind of stuff he's been doing, and I think he broadcasts every night. So if you're interested in this and it's entertaining to you or whatever, give him a follow. So what he's trying to prove is, I think he is a proponent of the fake death theory, but so the wound itself, which he actually, I'm not showing it because of YouTube, right? They're censoring, but he actually gets very in depth and has a lot of videos showing, basically he tries to recreate everything. He does the movement that looks like the decorticate posture. He fires the CO2 gun. He has a neck wound that, that bleeds and all that kind of stuff, kind of all synchronized to look similar to what we saw. And he also uses John Bray's software to kind of simulate what John Bray said he was seeing with the exploding mic, right? The energy transfer and stuff across the shirt. So I think these are earlier tests as well. This was 3 weeks ago. So he's gotten significantly more advanced and a lot closer. He's trying to explain how the chain moves and everything. So he's putting a lot of effort in. So a lot of people who initially were like, they're saying they don't believe in the fake death theory, but they're enjoying seeing him try to recreate it. They've subscribed to him to watch him. And he's a pretty sharp guy. I believe he's a software engineer, which I am as well. I don't know if a lot of people knew that, but I'm a software engineer as my day job. And then this guy does similar, and he's very science minded. Seems like a pretty good guy overall. All right. All right. Now I said, oh, hold on. Let me see one more thing. Where can I find Alguy's theory? You can find Alguy's theory in about 6 different videos on my channel. Just search here. Let me see if I can. I'll spell it here for you. So this is his name. So if you search Alguy's Night Dream, you'll find his channel, and he has really, really good edited videos, but he doesn't post very often. And then obviously he's on my channel several times. We have multiple lives and multiple, well, actually they're all lives now that I think about it. But he is definitely, he's sharp, right? Now, whether his theory is 100% or not has to still be proven, right? But based on the data he has, based on the classical physics and everything, and like I said, 2 other physicists basically saying the same thing as him, which I find very, very interesting and very intriguing. You know, I have to keep moving with them and keep seeing where things go. Let's see. And one thing about Alguy's theory and John's theory is that there's parts of them that explain certain things that we see, people's behaviors, and things about the event that a gunshot does not explain. And I think that's why a lot of people have kind of like latched onto those theories. All right, awesome. So we went through all the supers, and I think I've answered most of the questions that I've seen so far. But yeah, anyone who's a member, I definitely appreciate you. I'm working on getting some members only streams together. And yeah, Trigger's High IQ. We're also another high IQ outfit. But everyone's welcome, of course. And I know, like in my chats, a lot of times you don't see Joe type people, but it's because I have filters and things put on so that I give you guys a better experience. I don't know if that's hurting like my views and stuff overall, but I don't want to deal with people that are cussing and being nasty and, you know, fighting with other people in the chat and stuff like that. So I do that for you guys to make sure you have a good experience. But I think what I will do, yep. So that's all the stuff I had for Candace. And obviously we had some other interesting side quests, but I appreciate you guys being here. And if you want to support the channel, there's links down in the description. I have merch and everything else. I'm working on some t-shirts. And like I said, Audio Freq should be on either tomorrow or Wednesday, possibly Wednesday, because Baron and Candace will be on tomorrow. I don't know how long that show's going to be. And definitely hit the like, subscribe if you haven't already, and we will continue digging and moving this stuff forward. But I appreciate you being here.